The Most Holy Child remained on her knees while she listened to the words of the priest, and then asked his blessing. Having kissed his hand and the hand of her mistress, she proposed in her heart to observe the order of life assigned her during her stay in the temple, and as long as they should not command her otherwise. And she, who was the mistress of sanctity, fulfilled their orders as if she were the least of all the scholars. Her desires and her most ardent love impelled her to many other external exercises, which they had not included in their orders. But with regard to these, she subjected herself to the minister of the Lord, preferring the sacrifice of a perfect and holy obedience to the high dictates of her own fervor. She knew, as mistress of all perfection, that the divine will is more surely fulfilled by the humble acquiescence of obedience than in following the highest aspirations to other virtues. By this rare example, let souls, and especially those in the religious state, learn not to follow their own effervescences and whims, contrary to obedience and the will of their superiors. For in the latter, God makes known to us his desire and pleasure, whereas in the former we seek only our own fancies. In the superiors, God himself operates. In ourselves, if we work contrary to their orders, temptations, blind passion, and deceit is active. In the performance of works not commanded her, our Queen and Lady distinguished herself from other maidens by asking her teacher to be allowed to serve them all, and by engaging in the humble occupation of scrubbing and cleaning the rooms and of washing the dishes. Although this seemed extraordinary, especially in one of the firstborn children, who were treated with greater consideration and respect, yet the incomparable humility of the heavenly princess could not be restrained or confined by any consideration of what was due to her position, but reached out for the most humble occupations. With such an eager humility, she knew how to gain time and opportunity for doing such work, that she was beforehand in assuming the tasks of others. By means of her infused science, she understood all the mysteries and ceremonies of the temple, but she was anxious to learn them also by study and practice, as if she were ignorant of them, nor did she ever fail in any ceremony or duty, no matter how small. She was most eager for humiliation, and most submissive in her self-contempt. Every morning and evening she asked the blessing of her teacher and kissed her hand, and the same she did whenever she was ordered or was permitted to perform works of humility. Sometimes, when it was allowed her, she kissed her feet with profound humility. The sovereign princess was also docile, so sweet and friendly in her actions, so ready to serve, and so eager and diligent in humbling herself, so anxious to show kindness and esteem toward all the maidens in the temple, obeying them as if each had been her mistress, that she ravished all the hearts. By her ineffable and heavenly prudence, she proceeded in all her actions in such a manner that she never lost an occasion for engaging in lowly work, in humble service of her companions, and in the fulfillment of the divine pleasure. But what shall I, most vile creature, and what shall all faithful children of the Catholic Church think, when describing and considering such a vivid example of humility? It seems to us great virtue when the inferior obeys the superior, the lowly yields to the exalted, and we esteem it a great humility that the equal submit to his equal. But when the inferior commands and the superior obeys, when the queen humbles herself before her slave, when the most holy and the most perfect of all creatures submits to a mere wormlet, the queen of heaven and earth to the least of women, and when this is done with all her heart and in all sincerity, who is not astonished and confounded in his vapid pride? Who will not see, as in a clear mirror, his unhappy presumption? Who can convince himself that he knows what true humility is, much less exercise it, when he sees it exhibited in its reality and in its own element, the most holy Mary? Let us souls, who live under the vow of obedience, approach this light in order to perceive and correct the disorders which show themselves whenever obedience to our God-given superiors requires renouncement of our whims, and therefore becomes hard and troublesome. Here let our hardness be crushed. Let the proudest humiliate herself and be confounded in her shameful pride. Let her banish all presumption, and let her not account herself obedient and humble, because on certain occasions she has yielded to the superiors. For she is yet far from thinking herself inferior and beneath her companion, as Mary did, who is superior to all.